With the first light of dawn painting the sky a soft orange, Isa wrapped her feet in scraps of cloth to protect them from the rough path ahead. She didn't tell her mother, knowing she would only try to stop her. Clutching a small paper where she had written her request in shaky handwriting, Isa began her journey. The road was unforgiving. Dust clung to her legs, thorns pricked through the fabric wrapped around her feet, and the July sun soon burned overhead. But she kept walking, driven by a dream that was larger than the blisters forming beneath her soles. When she finally arrived, exhausted and trembling, the sports complex was already bursting with people. Locals gathered in swarms, hoping to catch a glimpse of the legend. Security guards kept the crowd back as Manny Pacquiao stood on stage, smiling humbly as he handed out relief goods and shook hands. Isa stood at the back, overwhelmed and dizzy. How would she get close enough? What if she never got the chance? But fate favors the bold. With trembling fingers, Isa tore a corner from her paper and scribbled one final line beneath her original message. "Please, I just want to go to school." Then, she squeezed through the crowd, ducking under elbows and weaving between bodies until she was just a few feet from the stage. A security guard spotted her and stepped forward until Manny raised his hand. "Let her come," he said gently. Isa could barely speak. Her voice cracked as she held out the note with both hands. Pacquiao unfolded it carefully. He read the words silently, then for a moment, he looked upright into Isa's eyes. He said nothing, just reached down, lifted her onto the stage, and gave her a hug that she would remember for the rest of her life. "You're very brave," he told her softly. The next morning, a brand new pair of black school shoes arrived at Isa's home along with a backpack, notebooks, and enough school supplies to last her the year. But more than that, there was a handwritten note from Manny. "Don't stop dreaming, because someone once helped me too." From that day forward, Isa never missed a day of school. The girl who once walked barefoot toward a dream no one believed in is now walking hospital halls. As a medical intern, her white coat cleaned her heart full, and on her desk at home sits that pair of black shoes framed like a trophy. Not because of what they were, but because of what they allowed her to become. He saw a reflection of his own childhood, the hunger, the hope, the unwillingness to give up. Without saying a word, Manny stood up and removed one of his own sneakers. To everyone's shock, he handed it to Isa, then the other. He was barefoot, now, standing in front of cameras and thousands of people, but it didn't matter. What mattered was the girl in front of him. "These are too big for you," he said with a gentle smile. "But don't worry. Tomorrow, you'll have your own pair. And not just shoes, you'll have everything you need to go to school." Isa stared at him, wide-eyed, unsure if she was dreaming. True to his word, the next morning a van pulled up to Isa's house. Inside was a brand new backpack, crisp school uniforms, notebooks, pencils, and yes, a perfect pair of black school shoes. But that wasn't all. There was also a letter. "Dear Isa, you reminded me of why I fight. Not for belts or titles, but for children like you who refuse to give up on their dreams. Study hard. One day, I want to shake the hand of Dr. Isa." Manny news of the encounter spread like wildfire. Media outlets ran the story with headlines like "Pacquiao gives girls shoes, gives nation hope." People around the country were moved just by Manny's generosity, but by Isa's quiet bravery. Inspired by the moment, donations began flooding in from across the Philippines. Thousands of children like Isa, who had been kept out of school by something as simple as not owning shoes, began receiving support. A nonprofit was born almost overnight. One pair, one dream, with Pacquiao as its honorary founder and Isa as its symbol. By the end of the year, over 80,000 students were back in classrooms across the country because one girl dared to ask for help. Years passed. Isa excelled in school. She later received a scholarship to study medicine in Manila where, during her graduation ceremony, a surprise guest appeared in the crowd. Manny Pacquiao. He stood and clapped proudly as the young woman in a white coat received her diploma. Tears filled her eyes, not just because she had finally become what she dreamed, but because the man who believed in her when no one else did was right there, smiling. And when a reporter asked her afterward what she would say to him now, Isa didn't hesitate. "He gave me shoes. I'll spend my life giving others hope to stand in theirs." He saw something in her, a reflection of his own childhood struggle. "What size shoe do you wear?" Manny Pacquiao asked gently. Isa shrugged. She didn't know. She'd never owned proper shoes. Without hesitation, Pacquiao bent down and removed his own sneakers, designer shoes worth hundreds of dollars, and placed them in front of her. "Try these," he said with a smile that crinkled his eyes. The crowd gasped as Isa slipped her tiny feet into the oversized shoes, nearly disappearing inside them. Laughter broke out, warm and real. Even Pacquiao chuckled. But what came next stunned everyone. He waved over his assistant and made a phone call. "You won't wear my shoes to school," he told Isa with a wink. "We're going to get you your own, and not just one pair." The cameras couldn't catch what he wrote on that notepad. But later, the world would learn. 12 pairs of shoes. For Isa, one for every year until college. a full scholarship from primary school to medical school, and finally, the birth of Steps to Dreams, a foundation launched on the spot, committed to giving shoes and supplies to underprivileged kids. Across the Philippines, sometimes God sends us messages through the most unexpected messengers, Pacquiao told reporters later. Today, he sent me Isa. For Isa, still standing in those comically large sneakers, the world seemed to tilt. She hadn't come asking for a future, just a pair of shoes. And yet, here she was, with doors flung wide open. The crowd had grown massive. Reporters pushed forward. Flashbulbs popped. But Pacquiao stayed focused only on her. Before she left, he knelt again. "Promise me something," he said softly. "Promise you'll study hard and help others when you can." That evening, she didn't walk 5 hours home. She rode in Pacquiao's personal car, accompanied by his staff, wearing a brand new pair of shoes that felt like clouds under her bruised feet. Her mother wept when she heard the full story, part joy, part disbelief, part motherly scolding. Neighbors crowded around. News crews followed. The video spread like wildfire. 0.20 million views in 24 hours. Steps to Dreams began trending worldwide, not just for what Pacquiao gave but for how real it was. No PR team, no media stunt, just a brave little girl, and a man who remembered what it meant to walk in broken shoes. Isa started school the very next day. The same principal who had turned her away now greeted her with open arms and a sheepish grin. Her classmates cheered. Teachers paid close attention, sensing something special. NESS. She sat at her desk, back straight, eyes forward, a future doctor, a village girl no more, because one day she had walked barefoot to hope and it answered. Isa approached her studies with renewed vigor, staying after class to catch up on missed lessons, borrowing books to read by candlelight. Her mother noticed the change immediately. Before, she was determined, she said with pride. Now, she's unstoppable. And indeed, Isa's academic performance soon began to match her ambition, with her natural intelligence finally finding the space to flourish. She soared. Meanwhile, Manny Pacquiao wasted no time fulfilling his larger promise. Within a week, he had assembled a dedicated team to officially launch the Steps to Dreams Foundation, seeding it with $2 million of his own money. He brought together education experts, social workers, and business leaders to create a sustainable program not just to provide shoes but to eliminate deeper barriers to education. The foundation's first initiative identified 10,000 children across the Philippines who, like Isa, were kept from school simply due to lack of footwear or basic supplies. Each child received a complete package: shoes, uniforms, backpacks, and essential learning materials. But Pacquiao insisted the foundation go even further. They launched scholarship programs, built libraries in underserved communities, and trained rural teachers not as acts of charity, but of justice. "This isn't charity," Pacquiao declared at the foundation's launch. "This is justice. Every child deserves the chance to learn, to grow, to dream beyond their circumstances." The ripple effects spread quickly. Other Filipino celebrities, inspired by Pacquiao's example, began contributing either financially or by volunteering their time. International shoe brands reached out, pledging millions of pairs to support the cause. Schools across the country reevaluated their uniform policies, with many eliminating outdated requirements that disproportionately affected poor families. Even government officials responded, increasing provincial education budgets and launching new initiatives aimed at closing access gaps. What began as one girl's quiet, desperate request for a pair of shoes had grown into a nationwide conversation about educational inequality. Journalists often asked in follow-up stories, would any of this have happened if Isa hadn't found the courage that day? If she hadn't walked 5 hours, pushed through crowds, and spoken up with honesty and dignity, without shame, without self-pity? 1 year after their first meeting, Pacquiao invited Isa to Manila for the anniversary celebration of Steps to Dreams. By that time, the foundation had helped over 100,000 children access education, built 50 libraries, and launched scholarship pipelines that would support students like Isa all the way to college. Pacquiao wanted Isa to speak at the event too, tell her story in her own words. At first, Isa was terrified. The thought of speaking in front of wealthy donors, celebrities, and cameras made her stomach turn. But then she remembered the girl who had once approached a boxing legend with nothing but tattered sandals and a handwritten note. If I could do that, she thought, I can do this too. Her mother helped her prepare, sitting with her night after night, in their now furnished home, which included a proper study space thanks to Pacquiao's ongoing support. On the big day, Isa stepped onto the stage in a crisp school uniform, her hair neatly braided, and on her feet, a pair of sneakers the exact same model Pacquiao had worn when they first met. She had requested them specifically. When Pacquiao noticed, he smiled broadly. The room fell silent. 1 year ago, Isa began, her voice steady and clear. I had no shoes, and no hope of education. Today, I'm at the top of my class. And I still want to be a doctor, but now, I know it's possible. She paused, locking eyes with Pacquiao seated in the front row. Mr. Pacquiao gave me shoes. But what he really gave me, was belief. Belief that I matter, that my dreams matter, that someone was willing to listen when I spoke. There wasn't a dry eye in the room, but it was her next words that truly captured why her story had touched millions. People call Mr. Pacquiao a hero for helping me, she continued. But I think heroes are everywhere, waiting for their chance. Sometimes they're famous boxers with millions of dollars. Sometimes they're teachers who stay late to help a struggling student. Sometimes they're mothers who go hungry so their children can eat. And sometimes, She smiled softly, They're just kids, brave enough to ask for what they need. The audience rose to a standing ovation that lasted nearly 5 minutes. Pacquiao, visibly moved, wiped away tears as he joined Issa on stage. Together they posed for what would become another iconic image. The boxing champion and the schoolgirl no longer connected just by a viral moment, but by a shared mission to transform lives through education. As Steps to Dreams expanded across Southeast Asia and attracted international support, Issa remained involved, even while focusing on her studies. By high school, she had become an ambassador for the foundation, speaking at events, meeting other children, and helping shape its vision from the inside. These experiences shaped her profoundly. She became more confident, articulate, and aware of how poverty and opportunity intersected. And though she remained firmly committed to becoming a doctor, she now carried with her a new purpose: to heal people not only with medicine, but with opportunity. Issa also developed a deep interest in public health policy and education reform as she matured. Maybe I can be both, she told a journalist during a follow-up interview on the 5th anniversary of her meeting with Manny Pacquiao, a doctor, and someone who changes the systems that make doctors inaccessible to the poor. By then, Issa had grown into a poised young woman, her academic achievements consistently matching her lofty ambitions. She remained at the top of her class, driven not only by her childhood dream, but by a broader mission to make healthcare and education accessible to all. For Manny Pacquiao, the Steps to Dreams Foundation became a defining part of his legacy. As his legendary boxing career began to wind down and his political ambitions evolved, the foundation remained his constant focus, because he often described as more meaningful than any championship belt. He frequently invited Issa to appear with him at major foundation events, proudly introducing her as my teacher, crediting her with showing him how direct, person-to-person action could spark systemic change. Their unlikely friendship, the global sports icon and the one shoeless village girl, became a powerful symbol of how unexpected human connections can transform both individuals and entire communities. Before I met Issa, Pacquiao said in one interview, I gave money to causes, built buildings, and put my name on things. But after meeting her, I understood something deeper. Real change happens person by person, dream by dream. Media analysts and sociologists who studied the Steps to Dreams story noted its extraordinary staying power. It wasn't just a feel-good celebrity tale, it became a case study in how authenticity fuels lasting change. On one level, it was the simple story of a poor girl helped by a generous star. But on another, it laid bare urgent issues: economic inequality, barriers to education, and the arbitrary gatekeeping that prevents talent from rising. What made this moment different from so many fleeting viral charity stories, experts concluded, was the courage of both participants. Issa, in speaking her truth with quiet strength; Pacquiao, in choosing not just to respond with money, but with long-term commitment to the root of the problem. 10 years after that fateful day at the sports complex, Issa fulfilled the promise she had made. She was accepted to medical school. One of the very first people she called was Manny Pacquiao. By then, Steps to Dreams had helped over 1 million children access education. It had built hundreds of schools and libraries and shaped education policy across Southeast Asia. The foundation had even created a special medical scholarship program, inspired directly by Issa's story. It now supported dozens of aspiring doctors from disadvantaged backgrounds, including her. At a celebration dinner held in her honor, Pacquiao surprised Issa with a gift that left everyone in the room speechless. He presented her with a glass display case. Inside were 2 items: the oversized sneakers she had tried on a decade earlier, the shoes he had taken off his feet and given to her, and a brand new pair of professional medical clogs designed for long hours in hospital wards. Next to them, a handwritten note for your next steps. The symmetry of it, all the shoes that had started her journey, and the ones that would now carry her forward, brought their story full circle. As Issa entered medical school, balancing the demands of rigorous coursework with her ongoing involvement in the foundation, she often reflected on that desperate decision to walk 5 hours in broken sandals. What if I hadn't gone? What if I hadn't spoken up? Would I still be back in my village, watching my dreams slip away? There was no way to know. But what she did know, what she carried with her into every classroom, every clinic, every community outreach program, was this: the courage to ask for help, to state one's needs without shame, had been the spark that ignited everything. It shaped her not only as a medical student but as a future doctor. She chose to specialize in pediatrics, focusing her research on how poverty impacts children's health outcomes. Many health problems start with something as basic as improper shoes or poor nutrition, she told her professors. As doctors, we have to treat more than symptoms. We have to treat the causes as social determinants of health. Media continued to follow Isa's journey, especially on anniversaries of the viral video or milestones in her life. Documentaries, books, and research papers were written about her story. What they all concluded, almost universally, was that the power of this story lay in its raw truth. There was no PR campaign, no planned narrative, just a child with a dream, a man with the means to help, and a shared belief that every step matters, no matter how small it may seem at the time. In a world filled with noise, spin, and strategic philanthropy, Isa and Pacquiao had reminded everyone of something timeless. Real change begins when one person dares to care. Educational scholars studied the Steps to Dreams model closely, seeking to understand why it succeeded where many similar initiatives had faltered. Their conclusion was clear. The foundation maintained its initial authenticity by focusing on direct engagement with communities rather than imposing solutions from above. During her second year of medical school, Isa received an unexpected invitation from Manny Pacquiao himself. He wanted her to join him on a global tour to launch Steps to Dreams International, an expanded version of the foundation working beyond the Philippines. "You started this journey," he wrote in his invitation, "and you should be part of taking it to the world." Though hesitant to take time away from her studies, Isa recognized the importance of the opportunity. Together, they visited schools in Indonesia, Thailand, Vietnam, and Malaysia, meeting local education officials, potential donors, and, most importantly, children facing challenges similar to Isa's a decade earlier. Each stop, they shared their story but also listened carefully, adapting the foundation's approach to address the unique challenges faced in each country. For Isa, these experiences became a different kind of education, one that complemented her medical training by revealing how social systems, cultural contexts, and economic realities influence health outcomes across communities. When journalists asked Isa what lesson people should take from her story, her answer evolved over the years but always retained a consistent core. "It's not about waiting for a famous person to change your life," she said. "It's about having the courage to articulate your needs and the persistence to find pathways forward, even when the obstacles seem insurmountable." She emphasized that while Pacquiao's generosity was extraordinary, the real beginning of change had been her own decision to act, to walk those 5 hours, to speak up despite fear. This message resonated deeply, especially with young people facing their own barriers. Isa received thousands of letters and messages from children and teenagers worldwide, sharing their struggles and dreams. Whenever possible, she responded personally, especially to those interested in medicine or public health, offering encouragement and practical advice from her own journey out of poverty into professional training. As Isa neared achievement celebrated not only by her family and Pacquiao, but by thousands of Steps to Dreams supporters, she began planning how to blend clinical practice with advocacy. She envisioned community health clinics in underserved areas, integrating medical care with educational support, nutrition programs, and services addressing social determinants of health. Impressed by her vision, Pacquiao pledged the foundation's support for a pilot program implementing this holistic approach. "When you asked me for shoes all those years ago," he told her, "you weren't just changing your own life, you were starting something that would change countless lives." Isa had come to understand the truth in those words. What seemed like a simple request, a pair of shoes to attend school, carried within it a profound challenge to rethink how opportunity is distributed, how potential is recognized, and how genuine human connection can bridge divides of wealth, power, and circumstance. The story of Isa and Manny Pacquiao continues to be told around the world, inspiring new audiences and actions with each retelling. Educational programs use it to discuss barriers to schooling faced by millions globally. Business schools analyze it as a case study in authentic leadership and philanthropy. Medical educators cite it when teaching health, equity, and social determinants of care. Perhaps most importantly, parents tell it to their children as a modern parable about courage, compassion, and the unexpected ways lives intersect and transform one another. For every child who hears about the girl who walked 5 hours to ask a boxing champion for shoes, there is a lesson about naming one's needs, the importance of education, and the possibility of overcoming daunting obstacles through determination and unexpected allies. As Isa often says, the first step is always the hardest, but you have to take it anyway. What few realize is how close Isa came to never taking that first step. The night before her journey, she nearly abandoned her plan after overhearing neighbors ridicule a similar idea. "You think Pacquiao cares about kids like you?" they sneered. "He has millions of fans, You're nobody to someone like him." Those words cut deep, reinforcing her doubts. She cried herself to sleep, almost convinced to stay home. What changed her mind was a vivid dream. She saw herself in a doctor's coat, treating patients in a clinic much like the one she planned to build. She woke with renewed determination, understanding this dream was not just a possible future, it was a responsibility to herself and others who might benefit from her potential. If only she could access education. This private moment of decision, rarely told in media accounts, was as pivotal as the public encounter that followed. Looking ahead, both Issa and Pacquiao recognized their work is far from over. Educational inequality remains a pressing global issue, with millions still unable to access quality schooling due to poverty, geography, gender discrimination, or conflict. Medical care continues to be distributed unevenly, with preventable diseases claiming lives, simply because of where people are born or how much their families can afford. These systemic challenges require more than individual acts of generosity. They demand sustained commitment, policy reform, and collective action. Yet Issa's story shows how personal connections can catalyze broader movements, how authentic human moments can cut through cynicism and inspire engagement with complex social problems. As she prepares to begin her medical career, Issa often reflects on the remarkable chain of events, from a desperate request for shoes to a life dedicated to healing and advocacy that transformed not only her own future, but the futures of thousands more.